Hi, I'm Dr. John Douillard, and I want to talk to you today about calcium supplementation. The British Medical Journal did a recent meta-analysis of over 8,000 people and found that people who take 500 milligrams of calcium are at risk of heart attacks by 30%. It's a lot. Why and how could that be? We've all been told calcium supplement is really good for you. Well, the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition has told us clearly in a 2007 study that foods are the best sources of calcium. Well, we just kind of sort of have always known that. And people in China, for example, in the China study, they found out that they eat only 200 milligrams of calcium per day, and as they age, they have the best bone density. Their bones get stronger as they age. Ours get weaker. Why is that? How could that be? Well, you know, one of the things is that we know in that same study, in the clinical nutrition study, that when you add a good quality calcium supplement to the foods, then you have the best and the strongest bone density. So why is that? Well, perhaps that's because our minerals are depleted in the soil, and we don't get the minerals and the calcium out of the soil the way we should. Now in nature, there isn't a calcium plant. The plants pull all the minerals out of the ground, and with folic and humic acids, they convert them into a bioavailable source form, usually attaching them with amino acids or glyconutrients to make them bioavailable. So when the cow or the elephant or the moose eats these plants, they get tons of minerals and tons of calcium, way more than they would ever need. And this is the first time in the history of the world, in the West, that we've actually seen bone density issues. Now, why is that? Well, partially is because we're supplementing ourselves with calcium that doesn't absorb. The number one source of calcium that doesn't absorb are the rocks, the shells, the calcium carbonates. They don't absorb well. And they're oyster shells and egg shells and limestone. So we want to avoid bone meal and these types of calcium. The calcium in your fortified milk and fortified orange juice are typically calcium carbonate. Make sure it's not that, because if it is that, then you're probably not going to absorb it. And that is the kind of calcium linked to the increased heart attacks by 30%. And we don't want that. So what kind of calcium do we want to take? What is the good calcium? When they combine the good calcium with good foods, bone densities were the best, in fact. So the best calcium is when you take an array of minerals together, not a calcium supplement with just magnesium, but calcium with an array of minerals that's attached or bound to a carrier like an amino acid. This is how nature did it, and it works perfectly. Also, the other factors with making sure calcium absorbs is vitamin D. We have epidemic deficiencies of vitamin D in this country. Vitamin D carries the calcium out of your gut into your cells and makes it bioavailable. You don't have enough vitamin D, which we don't as a culture. That's another factor. So please read the articles associated with the video on vitamin D. So make sure you optimize your vitamin D levels. Definitely make sure that's happening in the winter. And also in the article with this video, there's a list of all the foods that are rich in calcium and also rich in the other minerals. And make sure you're getting a good source of natural calcium. Because if you're going to convert yourself from a calcium supplement to a food-based source of calcium, make sure you know where to get your calcium and your minerals from. And that list is in the article associated with this video. Now, a Dutch researcher did a research project and found that one of the reasons why we might have bone density issues as we age is because when you take lots that are caused by calcium supplementation, is that when you take lots of calcium, the body feels kind of like, oh my gosh, I got to get rid of this, do something with this calcium. And what it does with that calcium is it stimulates the increased laying down of new bone. But for that to happen, it has to reabsorb some of the old bone so it can take the calcium and lay down new bone. And that's done with these osteoblasts. These osteoblasts lay down the new bone. Well, 70% of those osteoblasts die with each one of those bone-making cycles. So we have a limited number of those cycles that we can actually have in our lifetime. So as we age, those cycles start to slow down and we start to run out of these osteoblasts. So as a result, now we have a situation where we're still taking the calcium supplementation. I can't make the osteoblasts anymore. I don't have, the cycles are slowing down. So my bones become less dense. And that's why in the beginning, when you first take calcium, your bones become really dense because you increase the cycle of laying down new bone. Of course you're going to feel good. And the studies say calcium's the greatest thing. You know what? And it was, except for the fact that when these cycles slow down, we run the risk of osteoporosis as we age. That doesn't happen when you take dietary, botanical, natural sources of calcium. Interesting. But now the problems exist. What do you do with this calcium? Now that we're still taking calcium supplements like crazy, trying to lay down more bone, right, as we age? And the body can't lay it down. It doesn't have the osteoblast cycles intact the way it once did. So the body has to deposit this calcium in your arteries, in your heart, in your joints, in your brain. There's a thing called brain gravel, deposits in your joints, in your brain. Calcium deposits in your brain. So we've kind of created a little bit of a problem with calcium. Calcium supplementation has actually caused more problems than it's actually solved. So go to the article in this video, read about the calcium, the food sources of calcium. Understand about how vitamin D is so critically important in this process, and understand, I give you some tips about some calcium supplementation and mineral supplements that actually do work. And the combination of the food and a good calcium supplement can be, at least according to the latest research, is the best way to go. Thanks for listening. I'm Dr. John Douillard.